with this mess over here. And I'm back. Ooh, Jesus Christ. Excuse me, you guys. I didn't feel like getting my camera stand. Maybe I should go get it. Anyway, today's video is we're going to be continuing the House of Night series Fledgling Handbook that I started in my last video. I stopped at chapter 2, so that's where I'm going to pick up at. I'm going to pick up at exactly chapter 2 of the book. Okay, chapter 2. And I don't know where I'm going to stop, so, you know. Chapter 2, Rituals. Introduction. Rituals are the heartbeat of vampire society. They are how we exalt Nyx. They are also how we mark many aspects of our lives. Vampire society has major rituals, which include, but are not limited to, moon phases, changes of season, group cleansings, and protections, the death of a familiar, the breaking of an imprint, the celebration of Samhain, Yule, Beltane, and Eostre. Though rituals differ according to talents, preferences, and needs of each individual high priestess, there are some aspects of ritual that do not change. There's always a circle cast before ritual commences. When casting the circle, the high priestess will always begin in the east and call air to her. She will then move clockwise, or docile, around the center, pausing in the south to call fire, west for water, north for earth, and finally moving to the middle to call spirit to complete the circle. Candles are usually lit in each of the 5 directions as the element is called. The following colors are used for the candles: air yellow, fire red, water blue, earth green, and spirit purple. When the ritual is completed, it is customary for the high priestess to close the circle by thanking each of the elements in turn as she moves counterclockwise around the circle, ending where she began in the east with the element air. It is important to remember to maintain a focused mind and positive thoughts during ritual, and to ground yourself with food, drink, and relaxation after the ritual. Note that blood is often used in ritual, but rarely for fledglings younger than the 6 formers. To begin to understand the importance of the ritual, you must familiarize yourself with the historical foundation of 5 of our most sacred rites. So, fledgling, turn the page, and with it, let times fall like scales from your eyes. Prepare yourself to be enchanted by some of our most glorious high priestess and the rituals they inspire. This is an example of the candles, and this is north, east, west, and south, an example of the circle and how they all connect. The Dark Daughters Induction Ritual. Give me a second, guys. How do you do this? Continuation. The Dark Daughters Induction Ritual. Element air. The origins of the Dark Daughters can be traced to the year 60 AD in Brighton. At that time, the most prosperous Celtic tribe was Icena, led by the courageous human queen, Boudica, who refused to bow to Roman rule. To each the Icena queen, a lesson is submission. A Roman tax collector, Cactus Brutus, had the defiant Boudica publicly whipped and forced her to watch while her 2 teenage daughters, Miriam and Una, were brutally raped. Though only a human, Boudica showed the courage of a vampire sons of Erebus by donning battle garb and relaying the Celts against the mighty Roman legions. History books record her army's short-lived victories, their eventual defeat, and slaughter by the Romans, as well as the fact that Queen Boudica, she committed suicide shortly after her army was slaughtered. But human history reports nothing of what happened to her daughters, And that, fledgling, is because vampire history tells their story. Meaning they're probably vampires. After the tragic battle, both girls were marked, weak and ill from becoming newly marked far outside the protective boundaries of a vampire coven. The brave lassies made their way through their war-raged land to the Scottish Highlands and the House of the Knight on the Isle of Skye, which is another one of the campuses. There they grieved so fiercely for their mother that the vampires had little hope their fledgling bodies would accept the change, and so the coven left the girls to their mourning, almost as if they were afraid to catch the contagion of their misery. Utterly alone and believing they would forever be heartbroken, the girls had no desire to live. In the stillness that comes with the very end of the night, they made their way to the edge of the cliff on Neast Point, determined to hurl themselves to their deaths and nearby rejoin their beloved mother and queen. And then the air stirred. Carried by the salt breeze through the roiling mist of the isle, Nyx's voice was heard by Miriam and Una. Just before sunrise, in the gloaming that signals the beginning of dawn's rosy fingertips ascending the sky, the goddess's voice, filled with a mother's love, came to them wrapped with an elemental affinity, offering them a new life. "Oh, my dark daughters, you are so filled with despair that it grieves me deeply. Do not throw away your precious lives. Be brave and embrace the element and your new destiny. Know that I am ever with you. Listen to your hearts, and you shall hear me in the breeze that leaps at your call. Look with your souls, and you shall see me in each other's eyes. My love for you is as eternal as the air you breathe, and over which I grant you control. I ask that you choose life, love, and happiness. Let me heal your sorrows, that you may find strength in each other, my beautiful, brave, dark daughters," which is where it came from. The element air filled with the sisters with the love of the goddess, and as Miriam and Una headed Nyx's words and accepted their new destiny, her compassion healed the sisters' broken hearts. There, facing the sea in the dawn, for the first time and only time in history, fledglings marked for a mere fortnight changed, which means it only took them a little bit of time to change when usually it takes a lot of time. Before they left the jagged cliffs, the newly changed vampires swore a sacred oath that they would never allow another fledgling to feel the lonely despair that had almost cost them their lives. They sealed the oath with the power of wind. They swore the oath to Nyx. They bound the oath with the words, "The Dark Daughters chose life." Thus, the Dark Daughters were born. These are the two sisters' legendary tattoos. Dark Daughters Induction Ritual. Element air. Before casting the circle, the leader of the Dark Daughters should personally place a small table made from wood of the silver fir, which is also known as a birth tree, in the center of the circle. The leader should arrange 3 yellow bowls on the table around the purple spirit candle that always rests at the center of the cast circle. Fill 1 bowl with dried basil leaves, 1 with fresh salt water, and 1 with the dried needles of a silver fir. She also needs to fill a ritual chalice with mead. Mead is an old drink that's pretty much red wine, and they mixed it with blood, and they only drink it at very important times. Then the Dark Daughters leader, excuse me, the Dark Daughters leader should decorate the table with items of her choosing, which represent the element air, as well as things that symbolize friendship. For example, she might choose feathers to represent air and brightly colored ribbons braided together to represent the intertwining of friends' lives. When the table is ready and the circle is cast by the leader, the candidate for induction is called to the center of the circle. The leader dips her fingertips in a bowl of salt water and sprinkles it around the candidate, saying, "In memory of sea-bound Isle of Skye, where the Dark Daughters were born, I use salt water to cleanse the space around my sister candidate." And this is the chalice that they put it in. The leader returns to the table and, with a spirit candle, lights the bowl of dried basil. After the flame is sufficient to produce smoke, she blows it out. With gentle hand motions, she encourages the breeze to carry the basil smoke to the candidate, who should breathe deeply. As the smoke wafts over the candidate, the leader continues. Sweet basil exorcises negativity. As air carries basil around and through you, let any negatives be banished from your life. Returning to the table, the leader lights the dried fir needles with the spirit candle. These too should be blown out after the flame is sufficient to produce smoke. Holding the smoking bowl before her, the leader should walk slowly around the candidate 3 times, saying, "Be brave and embrace your new destiny. You know that Nyx is ever with you. Now from this day forth, know that your sisters, the Dark Daughters, are also ever with you. If you are afraid, call on wind for a sister, and you will be answered. If you are lonely, go to a sister, and you will know friendship. When you look in the eyes of another Dark Daughter, you will know you see love and compassion of Nyx reflected there." The leader returns to the table for chalice and offer it to the candidate, saying, "If you accept the pledge of the sisterhood, you will never truly be alone. What is your choice, Fledgling?" The candidate should then take the chalice, hold it up, and joyfully proclaim, "I choose life." And as she drinks deeply from the chalice, the leader and those who have witnessed the ritual shout, "Welcome to our sisterhood of life, love, and happiness. Welcome, Dark Daughter." The new Dark Daughter is honored by being allowed to close the circle. Afterward, food and drink should be shared in celebration. Many leaders gift the new member with a special present to symbolize the Dark Daughter's birth into sisterhood. Cleopatra's protection ritual. Element: fire. It is well documented by human history that Cleopatra was the only pharaoh of Egypt who was also a vampire high priestess. Human historians record that she was marked 4 years before her father, Ptolemy, died in August of 51 BC, and that the day he was entombed, she completed the change. Ptolemy left his vast kingdom to his son, Ptolemy V, but decreed he must rule jointly with his sister Cleopatra, and that, according to ancient Egyptian tradition, the brother and sister must marry. Ew. And this is one of her Egyptian tattoos, Cleopatra's. But Cleopatra was no longer human, and she was too wise to blindly follow an aberrant tradition. She did leave the Thebes House of Night to return to Alexandria, though she had no intention of marrying her brother. Human texts tell that she used Julius Caesar and the power of Rome to banish her brother. How she eventually married Mark Antony after Caesar's assassination, and how her affair with Mark Antony led to Egypt's downfall and her death. Once again, we must look to vampire history for the real story. In Egypt, Nyx is worshipped as Nyx Skidmet, which translates literally to a goddess of night and fire. Even before she was marked. Excuse me, I have to sneeze. Whew. I'm trying to stop it. Cleopatra left offerings of incense and sweet oil at the temples of Nyx Skidmet in Alexandria. Her scrolls, preserved by Thebes' House of Night, explain in their own words how being marked and then changed felt natural to her. Cleopatra recounts how her dedication to Nyx Skidmet had so deepened during the 4 years it took her to change, that the High Council declared her High Priestess status immediately. She was destined to become a powerful voice on the Vampire High Council, but her father's death and her decision to leave vampire society to rule Egypt irrevocably altered her life. And this is Cleopatra, and it's a very pretty picture. They have this in one of the schools. This is Cleopatra. She looks like a Egyptian gladiator. I like the dress of flames. Before facing the Egyptian nobility, the newly changed Cleopatra retreated to the desert outside Alexandria, where she spent 3 days and nights fasting and praying to Nyx Skidmet, beseeching the goddess to aid her in her determination to rule Egypt without being forced into abhorrent marriage with her brother. The goddess was moved by Cleopatra's love for Egyptian people, and she answered her young vampire's prayers by gifting Cleopatra with an affinity for fire that was so powerful that when she emerged from the desert and entered the city, the Egyptian people were awestruck at the sight of her. The ancient vampire history P.C.Cast describes the scene. And behold, as the sun set in the west, Cleopatra entered Alexandria. The vampire blazed. Her thick dark hair had taken on a bronze sheen, and thus gilded, it lifted around her burnished shoulders in response to the power that flamed from her body. She was golden, goddess of fire. Even her eyes had taken on a color of fire, for they glowed in unearthly amber. The people cried out that she must be Nyx Skemet come to earth, but Cleopatra did not claim the goddess's divinity. In a voice amplified 10 times, she cried, I am not she, but I have been touched by her flame, and if you accept me as your one true pharaoh, I will use the power of fire to protect you for as long as I draw breath. Alexandrians, commoners, as well as nobility, bowed willingly to Cleopatra, banishing her brother when he tried to insist they must follow human tradition and marry him to his sister. The day they crowned Cleopatra queen of the Upper and Lower Egypt, she called upon her element, fire, and publicly clasped a protective circle around the city of Alexandria, which held her people in safety for the next 2 decades. Ah, fledgling, I can imagine your confusion. You are wondering why Cleopatra's protection ritual is of such importance if it only lasts 2 decades. Your answer is that the focus is not Cleopatra's ritual, but in the lesson learned through its deterioration. Julius Caesar was indeed an ally of Cleopatra in Egypt, which is only logical as he imprinted her during his first visit to Alexandria. The great vampire pharaoh even visited Caesar in Rome, and she mourned the loss of her consort deeply when he was assassinated by power-hungry humans. Mark Antony, too, allied himself with Cleopatra for imprinting with her and becoming her second consort. It was this imprint and Mark Antony's desire to forsake his homeland and live at Cleopatra's side that turned Rome against Egypt. Rome demanded that Mark Antony's imprint be broken and that he return to resume his position as a commander of the legions. Cleopatra refused to be parted from Antony, saying, Rome has taken one consort from me. They shall not have another. The Egyptian nobility begged Cleopatra to reconsider. They said the kingdom could not stand against the might of Rome. Cleopatra refused to listen. The vampire high council took the unprecedented action of becoming involved in human politics. They met with Cleopatra, urging her to remember that she was not simply a vampire in love with her human consort. She was a pharaoh of Egypt and responsible for the safety of a nation of humans. Cleopatra refused to listen. Her handmaidens told the commoners stories of how they witnessed Nyx Skemet appearing to Cleopatra within the flames of the pharaoh's hearth fire, speaking words of reason to her daughter and trying to guide her back to the right path. As you have learned, fledgling, our goddess's great gift to all of her children is that of free will. Cleopatra chose not to listen. Rome came against Egypt, and while Cleopatra was paralyzed with fear for her consort, she forsook her people, and the protective circle around Alexandria crumbled from a flame of power to ineffective ash. The city was invaded. Mark Antony attempted to lead the Egyptian army and stop the destruction, but Cleopatra's fear for him had taken away his warrior spirit, and he was killed. The Egyptians were enslaved. Upon learning of Antony's death, Cleopatra called her to her element and commanded it to cleanse her of the unbearable grief and guilt she was feeling. Like a giant serpent, fire consumed the vampire, swallowing her whole. So you see, the importance of a protective ritual is not found within the circle itself, but is instead found within the vampire who cast it. Let the memory of Cleopatra guide you to wise choices. A protective fire ritual. In order to perform an authentic protective ritual with a fire emphasis, the priest conducting the ceremony must follow Cleopatra's guidance and seclude herself, fasting and praying, 3 full days before the night of the ritual. It is not necessary for the priest to retreat into a desert for her seclusion, though she should be utterly alone, speaking to no one except Nyx. During this time, the priest should set her ritual intent. This means she must focus on what or whom it is she wishes to protect, and why she feels the need for the ritual. Remember, fledgling, it is through the priestess that the protection will succeed or fail. Should her intent be honorable, and should remain that way, the ritual will succeed, though to what extent depends entirely upon the strength of the priestess. Add even a shade of dishonorable or selfish intentions, and the ritual will become as ineffective as oil in putting out fire. A protective fire ritual begins exactly at dusk on the third day of the priest's fast. The circle should already be prepared for her, with circles at each of the 5 elements, stations, and witnesses assembled around the circle. In the center of the circle, on a wrought iron table, there should be a red chalice filled with precious oil mixed with cinnamon. As the sun sets, the priest should enter the circle without speaking. She should be carrying long wooden matches and an atem. An atem is a knife that's only used for rituals. The priest casts the circle and then goes to the oil-filled chalice. Holding it before her, she should begin to the east and walk docile around the circle, pouring the oil into her right hand, and with that hand, sprinkling the oil around the circumference of the circle. As she walks, she says, I call upon the element fire to watch, bless, and guide this ritual. To honor fire, I anoint the circle with cinnamon oil poured by my own hand, and I proclaim my intent to seek the element's protection over this house of night. To show my intent is pure, I proclaim these ancient truths first spoken long ago when Cleopatra, another child of Nyx, called upon you. Let me see how many pages I got left. Christ. That's a long way. I'm sorry, you guys. I hadn't read how many pages and my voice is starting to get hoarse. This is a lot of pages. Okay, well, I might finish in a little bit, okay? Jesus, I've already read a lot. So I'm going to stop at page. I'm going to stop after... I'm going to stop at page 71. I started at page 37, excuse me. All right. I lost my page, you guys. Got it. In a loud, clear voice, the priestess should cry, Hail, Nyx Strider, coming forth from seclusion, I have done no wrong. Hail, she whose 2 eyes are on fire. I have not defiled the things of the goddess in thought or deed. Hail, disposer of the false speech. I have not inflamed myself with rage. Hail, all-seeing goddess, provider of her children. I have not cursed using your name. The ancient proclamations end when the priest returns to the center of the circle. She lights the oil left in the chalice and holds it over her head, saying, With pure ritual intent, I hold the fire to this oath of protection. It strengthens me, and through me, its flames will be long-lasting, consuming with fierceness any who wish ill to this house of night. Still holding the flaming chalice, the priestess then takes her atem, which is the knife, and approaches the yellow candle that represents fire at the east edge of the circle. Passing the blade through the chalice flame 3 times, she says, I am one with the flame, even in the midst of sunshine. I enter to protective fire. I come forth from the fire. The sunshine has not pierced me. Thou, who knows my purest intent, has not burned me. But thy fire will keep this house of night safe, cutting like this knife through wax anyone who dare defile this ritual. Need some water. With a hot athame, the priest should carve the name of her house of night into the yellow candle, and then carefully place it in its chalice, allowing the flame to consume it. While it burns, she should thank the other elements and send them away. And the witnesses should also go quietly, leaving the priest alone with the burning candle. She should wait until the entire candle is consumed and the flame dies of its own accord before she leaves. The ritual is very draining for the officiating priests. Afterwards, she must re-energize as well as ground herself. Circle and the full moon ritual. Element water. The full moon ritual is unique in its purpose. It is the only major ritual that exists solely to enable vampires and fledglings to know the beauty and enhancement of Nyx by transcending the boundaries of the physical world. Out of all the exquisite high priests who have led this ritual, there is one vampire whose memory outshines the others. The following is lovingly dedicated to her. Until the month of August in the year 79 AD, the vampire high council made its home on the lovely island of Capri. Many extraordinary vampire high priests reigned there, but the most widely recognized of our ancient home's matriarchs was Circe, to whom Nyx gave the infinity for water. It was Circe who imprinted with the famous traveler, Odysseus, and Circe who inspired the building of Pompeii. Such was her beauty and allure that ancient artisans crafted Pompeii to be, a jewel so exquisite it might aspire to adorn the bosom of Circe. Of Circe was more than just a beautiful high priest. She walked Nyx's path and was so devoted to the goddess that she could find the magic of Nyx's touch in even the simplest of things. Humans feared her and labeled her witch and sorceress, creating an entire mythology about her long and magic-filled life. Vampires adored her and called her goddess blessed. When she passed over to the other world, it is said that the aquamarine blue of the Mediterranean surrounding Capri turned black for 3 days in mourning for her. Of all of Circe's talents, vampire historians agree that she was the most adept at drawing down the full moon. We know this to be true, not just from the vampire legend. Today, portraits of circle performing full moon rituals can be found gracing the walls of many national museums, including the Louvre, the British National Portrait Gallery, and New York's Museum of Natural History. Perhaps one of the reasons Circe's moon's rituals were so extraordinary was that she had the ability to foretell the exact date the full moon would crest between the twin Faraglioni rocks, just off the southern coast of Capri. Of the Faraglioni, Circe wrote, "All around my rocky beauties, the azure sea reigns supreme, caressing the Faraglioni with a salty kiss. One of my darlings appears sculpted as if by Nyx's hand with a fantastic inlay tunneled through its core. The other juts proudly from the coast, like a centennial warrior, ever so vigilant, so aware. And when our goddess is in the form of a glowing silver moon, it is drawn between them. Magic ensues. Now, fledgling, prepare to be gifted with a unique jewel. The text that follows has been translated from the only surviving ritual written in Circe's hand from her personal journal. Here, in the long-dead high priestess' own words, behold the magic of a Capri full moon ritual. Element water. The following was translated from her own personal journal. I could feel it coming in the air tonight, though it wasn't until after dusk that I knew beyond any doubt that the transcendent moon would crest between the proud jut of the Faraglioni rocks that very night. As befitting an event that happens, at most, twice a year, the High Council instantly spreads the word, signaling with the beacon fire on our rocky outcropping and calling all vampires within sight home to Capri. My priestess prepared me, taking special care to anoint my body with fine oils, to outline my eyes with kohl, and to dress me in the riches of my ritual garb. A sheath so soft it felt as if I were wearing a garment made of water, turned to cloth through the magic of Nyx. I chose the largest and most beautiful of the conch shells I had collected during the last full moon. I held it carefully before me while the priestess and sons of Erebus escorted me from the castle to the winding path that led down the southern shore. As we walked, I saw that the light from their torches reflected the pink center of the shell, as if illuminating a secret. Should I live in eternity, I will never forget the joy of this night. When the warm sea, ripe with salt and life, touched my bare feet, I thought I might faint at the wash of pleasure that filled me. Ah, goddess, you so richly blessed me when you gifted me with water. As always, I praise your name. Had the moon not been hanging full and bright between my beloved Faraglioni, I could have stood there for hours, utterly charmed by the sea. But the goddess's moon reminded me of my purpose. So with the aid of the 4 favorite priestesses, I lit each of the elemental candles, placing them in turn on hollowed pieces of driftwood carved specially to hold them. When my circle was complete, the music began. Drums beat, flutes thrilled, and cymbals shimmered with happiness made audible. Those gathered lifted their voices in sweet harmony. I danced, filled with the sea and the silver light of the moon. When that glowing orb was high enough in the sky, I raised the conch, signaling the music to quiet. Then I launched the small candle vessels, stepping deeper into the embrace of the sea with them. As well as my circle remained complete, my element did not fail me. Out of love for me and honor to the goddess, tides and waves stilled. suspending motion so that I stood on my conch in the center of the magical circle. Smiling, I dipped the shell into the sea, and then turned to face the multitude that stretched as far as I could see, along the shore and up the rocky coast. "Merry meet," I cried. "Merry meet." Their response was a joyous shout. The full moon is a time when the veil between our world and the goddess, the known and the unknown, is transparent. Our night such as this, magic is afoot. And of course, this is her doing the ritual. I spoke the words I knew so well that it seemed as if they had been written across my heart. Tonight, ritual takes on a layer of mystery as a glistening symbol of Nyx has risen between our beloved Farah Gleone. So tonight, vampires, we revel in the goddess's additional blessing. Any task you finish tonight will be blessed. Any purpose you choose to voice tonight will be blessed. In joining you, wish to complete tonight will be blessed. "Hail Nyx," they cried. And now, I shall finish this ritual of magical completion. I turned so that I faced the full moon. I recited the full moon blessing for my people. "Above me I feel your love, my goddess, full of the promise that through you, my goddess, all things ripen and come to fruition, my goddess. As diaphanous boundary between worlds, my goddess, is illuminated by the white light of your sign, my goddess, I may ask that some small ray of your love descend. Fill this sea-born chalice, my goddess, so that I may pour it over me, my goddess. Take your gentle touch to the children of the night." I could not see the water within the conch, which I still had over my head, but I knew the instant Nyx's hand touched it by the sudden warmth that radiated through my palms and the joyful gasps I heard echoing along the shore. The full moon is blessed for all to see, as the goddess wills, so mote it be. I shouted the words as I poured the goddess foot water over my head and down my body. The water covered my skin until I glowed with a silver light that so mirrored the moon that I had chose my eyes to be closed, as to not be blind by its brilliance. And while the priest closed the circle, I rejoiced with Nyx's children of the night through song, dance, laughter, and praise. And above all else, through love, always love. I'm stopping there today, my friends. The next we're going to read about spirit release of a familiar. So that's where we're going to start. That's page 71. That's halfway through the book now. I love this book, man. Enjoy.